have no idea how to start this. So we've been planning this trip now for 2020 you turned 60 and got old, and your best daughter decided to give you a amazing gift of taking you back over to Germany, and then we're doing like a leg around Europe to about how many countries?
11 countries in all, and basically it's a big circuit from west to north as far as Hanover. It's probably furthest east is going to be Budapest, furthest south will be Milan, and then travelling out through the Alps.
Yeah. So, starting off, we got on a plane, a very fancy plane, first time in business class with Vietnam Airlines. How did you enjoy that experience?
It was really, really surprisingly very nice people. Food was very, very, it was probably the best I've ever had on a plane.
Yeah.
Let alone the business class accommodation that you get with the bed and everything like that. It's going to be very, very tough to go back to cattle class.
We landed in Paris and then got our way to pick up the bikes. So we're riding on two BMW Cruisers. They're 750s. Because I am a short ass, we had to get something that could have a low rider capability into it. We've also got 3 storage boxes which house all our kit. And really, like, getting out of Paris was the next level experience.
So we found ourselves being hopelessly lost in and around Paris until eventually we got onto some sort of a motorway. The riding on the wrong side of the road has proven not to be much of an issue at all.
Got to a Chateau de Bourgogne. So it was a gorgeous chateau. Like, I've never been in one, so I've only got one to really go against. But yeah, it was just beautiful. Like, very like ancient history. Like, it's just tapestries all over the wall and paintings, and like we had to walk up a spiral staircase to get to our room. I guess the people that are maintaining the Julien, yep. So Julien cooked us a French 4-course meal, which was stunning.
Candlelight as well. It was all very
candlelight, yeah.
Romantic and all that sort of stuff.
Very romantic, yep. From there we jumped on the bikes and probably did not plan the day too well. We tried to do a little bit too much. I would say the first half of the ride was brilliant. It was going through these small little, what they call routes.
Saint-Michel.
Yeah, which is a huge ass castle in Normandy. Yep. So basically, this castle is when it's low tide, you can access it. They've obviously built like a jetty now, but very, very famous and looked like it was, even through the wars, like it had not been disturbed one iota.
And then essentially it was all ahead's coming in.
So behind us is the lighthouse, and it's pretty epic. So the tower itself, just above us, is about 125 metres, I think it is, right to the top. It's no longer in use, but it's, again, the ride up here was quite beautiful. Experience what natural France is like. Yeah, just
growing their own food, cooking their own food. Yeah, they seem to be a happy, calm, contented people. You're not stressed out at all, so there's a lesson to be learned. In the next part of the journey, all good.
Cool.
Catch you next time.
See ya. So like I said to you yesterday, we've literally done that song from Paris to Berlin. Not every disco in between. And I don't remember the last part of that song.
I suppose from the last update where did we do it at the lighthouse?
As we left the lighthouse, to get from that lighthouse to Arnhem, it was a fair distance. It was probably 450, 500 kilometres thereabouts. So we stopped in another French town called Gamache. We hope we're not brutalising the language or the town's name. To get into the Airbnb was a little bit later than expected. So we ended up travelling a little bit further just outside of Gamache, probably about 10, 15 k's to a monumental building. It was similar to a palace where we only think was a statue of Napoleon on a horse. We think it's Napoleon. It looked like Napoleon. We might not know if it's Napoleon because, again, everything's written in French and translating is quite difficult. Then jumped back on the bike, went into the Airbnb.
And we had pizza that night too. The next morning, the intention was to get up early, but what we discovered in France, they don't get up early. By the time we left there, it was about 10:30, something like that, maybe even a bit later.
We even got to play a quick game of table tennis.
We travelled north to Dunkirk, which proved to be so disappointing.
The reason we went to Dunkirk, it's a very famous British war.
Evacuation of just about the entire British army at that time. Operation where essentially they grabbed a whole bunch of boats, pick up whatever they could in terms of soldiers and bring them back to England. And so when we went there, in my mind, it was like a hello sight, and what we discovered was that on that day there was probably 10,000 other French holidaymakers also on the beach.
But then we made it up. Belgium has been, and Bruges was...
It was a brilliant little town, surrounded by canals,
a drawbridge and moat.
And all sorts of stuff, old buildings, churches, what you'd expect, cobblestone drives. It was an absolutely beautiful place to visit. We took some lovely photos there. But no, actually had nothing to eat there, did we?
No, we just stopped on the bike and then kept going.
And then from there we ended up travelling to, was probably the standout place at the moment, which was a place called Antwerp, again in Belgium. This was absolutely magnificent. You know, such a lovely, what would you call it, a main plaza area.
I would say it was a mix between medieval cross modern technology. It was stunning to walk around, clean, beautiful, bikes everywhere, happy people. Just walking through, there was various different like churches, and I don't know, it was just incredible. And then
Chocolate tour.
I did. So Amanda said that I had to definitely try Belgium chocolate, and as she was texting this to me, we walked past a chocolate place. I went in and had a little chocolate cheesecake. It was fantastic. Then we hadn't had anything to eat, ended up finding a cute little food area where we had what I would call normal food, not bread. And then from there, back on the bikes again to Arnhem, Dunkirk into Arnhem, going through Belgium.
Yeah, all the back streets and little towns that we went through. You'll see some of it in the footage. Oh, just brilliant.
We got to take a ferry across to... I was quite thrilled about the ferry because some of those bridges that we went over and also saw were a little bit nerve-wracking. So first stop was a halfway point between Arnhem and Hanover, and Munster was the one that popped out of my eye because I think it resembled very similar to an old black and white TV series called The Munsters. Mixture of like Paris, medieval, that's what it was like as a little town.
Munster was part of the learning curve that we started to develop, where travelling, let's say 400 k's a day, we struggled big time the first 3 or 4 days with the travelling. And then we discovered that we needed to create more breaks in the journey because of the soreness in the bike riding. And I think we found a recipe now of success where just knowing what we needed to do to give a bit of relief to the body. From Munster we arrived here in lovely Hanover. We're staying with some absolutely, they're going to be lifelong friends I'm sure, Christy and Svenja. The first day we arrived, we ended up going to a music in the park.
But he's got blankets with picnic setups, and kids are running around having fun. And so we left here about 7. It's a 3-hour drive in a car to Berlin. We ended up stopping halfway.
We stopped at places where There were examples of the old Cold War and the East Germany versus West Germany inspection points that basically still kept as a memorial. And then we did the charge into Berlin. Just tried to pick up as many interest points that Berlin has to offer. Everything from obviously the Brandenburg Gates, Checkpoint Charlie, a whole bunch of churches and buildings.
A big tower with a ball and a pointy thing at the top.
We ended up seeing
The Berlin Wall.
Mexi got some absolutely fantastic photos, some of the murals that were painted.
We got onto a hop-on, hop-off tourist bus, and there was little, with the translation, Christian would then add on with a little bit more German reference. He is extremely knowledgeable about German history. Got to see the president's mansion.
We also got to meet Svenja's sister.
And Svenja's sister is actually an actress at a theatre where she's been there for 5 years doing various different stage shows. Highlight of the day was I had my first schnitzel in Germany. I demolished it within seconds, not minutes, seconds, along with the fact that I was not eating bread. Obviously a very long day being from 7 to 12, but understanding, I guess, our heritage and getting a little bit of knowledge on at the moment.
Of the trip?
Yeah.
I think we're about 9 or 10. The last couple of days has been more around meeting and saying goodbye to Christian and Svenja.
We went into Hanover, took the train. I feel like it was a lot quieter of a town that we've seen. There's one specific building that he took us into which had maps of over the years. So it was like one from the 1800s, one in the 1900s, and moved up to the current state. And in this building was this elevator that you took right up to the top of the tower. It just didn't go straight up. Went up in like a curve sort of motion. Well, we got up to the top, and again, Christian gave us very specific details of Hanover, and back down, walked around, saw various different buildings and monuments. Then we went to the lake that was there.
Yeah, they had some sort of a festival. A whole bunch of stalls, musicians playing, obviously plenty of food and alcohol. And people just having a really good time.
We said goodbye to Christian and Svenja, and thank you again so much for your hospitality, accommodation, friendship. We hope that this is a long-lasting friendship and we get to see you back in Australia again. So Bockenham is where
the German side of the Gosh family lives. I met again Marcus and Michael with Lena.
So Marcus and Michael are actually my cousins. Comes from Dad's older sister. Yeah, it was really nice.
And again, we tortured ourselves with trying to expand the knowledge of what we know of the Gosh family.
Leipzig, I think, honestly, Dad and I, by that time, especially going to like Berlin and Hanover and then Bockenham, it was quite a lot packed in just 2 days. So we got to Leipzig, and the next morning after breakfast we walked into town.
It's a lovely town, that's all said and done. But that's probably we didn't spend enough time.
So up until this point, Antwerp has been the mecca of the trip. Riding out of Germany, we came towards Czech. We went through some underground tunnels. The countryside was something different from what we've seen. We're seeing mountains, and it's just a different landscape now. Into Prague, to this hotel which is called the Grand Prague International Hotel. And as we were getting in the tram, I was on my phone trying to figure out where we were going, and Dad just tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Megsy," it was like something out of a movie. I looked up and there was this canal and old buildings.
Prague is an absolute magnificent city. By far the best place that we've stayed at. The features of this city is absolutely stunning, and hopefully you'll have a look at the footage. The streets and the sidewalks, just every time you turn the corner there is this sight in front of you that stuns you.
We got to see the John Lennon Wall. We walked over a bridge that connects Old Town to the new part of the town. We saw the castle and a few other things. Now, Dad, when we were planning this trip, had mentioned something about an underground restaurant.
It was the most bizarre place.
You get to this restaurant, you go down a number of really, really old stairs. The first room just looks like something out of Vikings. You're actually at a communal table where we met a couple from Cyprus and a couple from France. It's a 5-course meal that comes out. A show gets put on for you. The first one was the Czech band that was playing really old instruments.
They're like bagpipes.
Yeah.
They played a bunch of songs, folk songs.
When you looked around, sitting in literal candlelight, then there's the band and belly dancers. Now, I have to say that was my favourite. That could be my lost calling in life. I put on some sort of bikini-looking outfit.
I could have been part of the band.
A couple that was dressed like pirates, who then proceeded to have a real-life sword fight in front of us. Those swords were real. They were very close. The belly dancers then came back to do a sword belly dance. They rested the sword on their hips and on their cleavage, their head.
You even got up and
I did. I walked around, I clapped, so I was part of the entertainment. It's disappointing that we're only here for one night.
definitely, if you're over this side of the world, Prague has got to be on your destination point. To pick up from last time, was probably we had our worst day of the trip.
Going from Czech back into Germany.
And we ended up losing each other on the freeway.
Nearly every country we've gone into, there has been significant roadworks on the major highways. As we were coming up to this right-hand turn, there was a merging lane coming in with about 3 or 4 trucks that got in between Dad and myself, and on our comms, we only have, if we lose each other between 400 metres, the comms automatically close. Dad and I lost each other. I was able to buy a temporary SIM card. I called my partner Amanda and said to her that, can you call my mum because I need to focus on the road. If Dad got Wi-Fi on his phone because he didn't get a temporary SIM card, he could call Mum and she could let him know that I'm going to Nuremberg.
We pretty much went the same way, which was, yeah, lovely. We went and saw the old Nazi Party's headquarters at Nuremberg. We managed to sneak inside an exhibition when it wasn't open. Yeah, but Nuremberg was a nice place to stay. It was a difficult day for us and we had to come to terms with, that's probably an aspect that we didn't really do a lot of planning, and that is disaster planning, a realisation that we had to be more aware of potential circumstances that can happen. The next morning we went to Dachau.
Dachau is a concentration camp. We wanted to see and understand what it was like back in World War II. It was the most eeriest situation where you're walking in, and Dad actually pointed out there is a number of houses on the right-hand side that are less than 20 metres away from this camp. They would have had to know and probably were the guards.
Again, a lot of people were going there to pay their respects or inquisitive about what was going on back those days. You got to see exactly what happened to areas that they stayed in. They kept the prisoners in modern day society realises that there was a terrible wrong. And rightly so, they can't fix what the past is. All you can do is think of the conditions that would have happened back in those days and understand that it was a horrible time.
Then we ended up doing a long ride into Munich. A common practice on this trip has been plug in the main street. And we ended up going to the most busiest street. It was packed. We did a little bit of walking around Munich. Don't get me wrong, it's still a gorgeous city. You're starting to see the same features nearly in every town now.
And that's what's starting to put us off about going to major cities at summer period over here and big tourism. And it's just so overwhelmingly crowded. Yeah, from Munich we left.
Started going to my favourite place. Just talk about the experience riding into Austria. So we've had Bruges and Antwerp, which were like our first set points of this is gorgeous. Then we went into Prague, and it was like, okay, can't get any better than Prague. Riding into Austria was a next level experience. One, we saw water because we went past that gorgeous lake.
It was a lovely windy road, but you could see in the distance a storm brewing, and it hit us when we got into Berchtesgaden. Just rivers going along the side of the road, the Alps that you see, magnificent forests all the way around.
I got to take some great drone footage of a little town that we bypassed that just looked like something out of a storybook. We ended up staying just outside of Salzburg. We didn't have any dinner service, so we had to go into the small little town. And then from Salzburg, we went into, and I know we just said we want to go into a major city, we had to go experience Vienna.
You have an expectation in your mind of what Vienna is going to be like. Once you got inside the city, it just transformed into an absolute glorious place to walk around. They built all these fantastic churches, walls, monuments.
They had a gorgeous canal that went around that I think we stopped looking at all the beautiful little buildings and to the one point where we looked up and there was this stunning church.
Quite impressed with Vienna.
The interesting one. Coming to Zagreb, Dad, when he was planning this trip, had been told that Croatia was stunning. We're just going to put that out there, that if Croatia is stunning and it's because you're on the coast, well, we weren't there and we're going to take it from our perspective. And that day, I would have to say, was probably the hardest on the bike coming in for the sense of the heat. It got to 40 degrees on the bike. Road heat would then take it up to about 46, 47. We had a little bit of an incident at a truck stop where Dad actually fainted at one point.
My helmet, Elvis, started to fall apart on me. Oh, the trim was coming off.
But then Dad got high off super glue and heat on the bike. We got into Zagreb. Didn't really enjoy it, which at the end of the day I think was a really good thing because it gave us a little bit of time. We took that as just, okay, we're just going to have this as a rest point.
Croatia a chance. One of the people at the hotel, don't go to there's nothing in Zagreb, but you've got to go to see these waterfall features.
But it was about a 2-hour ride in the complete opposite direction to get here. We'll take the hit today. We got to the lakes and it was a lesson learned in the sense that if we want to do activities on this trip, it has to be pre-booked. It was also a 2.5-hour wait highway to get into Trieste. I am sorry, the Di Chiara side, where my aunt has married into an Italian side of the family, we got to ride through the national park. It was great, but I am a quite comfortable motorbike rider. I've been riding since this one put me on my very first bike, and probably before that when I was a baby and he would ride me around on his bike. Coming out of Croatia into Trieste, it was doing a descent from Mount Olympus. So I was lead bike and coming down, although the views were stunning. Like at the moment where I was like, yeah, you didn't die, good for you.
You can see the storm building up around the mountains here, and all of a sudden it just started to rain and rain and rain and rain. But we came to this lovely seaside town.
We found it looked like an authentic little Italian restaurant. I had spaghetti ragu. Fun fact, ragu just means spaghetti bolognese. I was okay with that. Dad had spaghetti carbonara. And then we walked down and it opened into this massive piazza, which overlooked the harbour, ocean, and then you pivot around to these old buildings.
It was a surprising alternative to Venice, and we haven't been disappointed.
Last time we did a review, we were in
Trieste. It was a lovely, surprising, lovely seaside town in northern Italy, and from there we ended up going to another town called Brescia.
Because going into Switzerland, it was going to be about a 450 kilometre, I think, ride, which was going to be quite a lot. So again, there was 2 bits in Italy.
We decided to give Venice the big flick. Secondly, Milan. We decided that Milan was just a touch bit south, and we wanted to head further north to try to cut the daily ride time a little bit. That was the decision-making process.
Now that we've got used to the bike, we don't need to have longer breaks anymore or take so many breaks. So it's gone from let's have a break every 70 to we're now doubling that.
Well, first of all, we went past Lake Como, which is still part of Italy, but what a stunning place to ride past.
Lake Como into Lugano.
And that's where we discovered the wonders of Switzerland.
We rode past that and we were like, oh, well, that's really stunning. And then we had to do this stop in Lugano, probably butchering the name. It was really impressive. And on this lake, beautiful views, Switzerland, stunning little place. I've been banging on that Austria is incredible. Was I wrong?
And that's where we found the wonders of Switzerland tunnels.
We went through this tunnel that I think legitimately was like 16 kilometres long. But as we kept on going further into this tunnel, it hit 42 degrees. Once we got to the end of the tunnel, it dropped significantly to like 17 degrees.
We went to, it was probably the place that Megan wanted to go to from day one, which is Brienne's, a famous lake area in a scene for Band of Brothers. Again, another stunning area.
Town is just very Switzerland-like, and we stayed in this beautiful Airbnb. In the morning, I watched the sunrise, magical moment. We went and had dinner that night. Next day, I booked an activity, and it was a canyon jump swing up about 50 metres in the glaciers. It was in Grindelwald.
Magnificent. You got to go. You got to go there to have a look at it. It is surrounded by the Alps, typical Bavarian houses left, right and centre. Helicopters.
It was mountain bikes and the adventure place to go. And we actually walked up the beautiful waters of in between the glacier, and yeah, it was really, really nice.
As a stop point, Lucerne.
Yeah, Lucerne was actually quite nice. It has this beautiful little old bridge that's got flowers on it, and yeah, we just stopped briefly in there for lunch and had a quick look around, but Lucerne was beautiful.
And the Alps seemed to diminish going north, and we ended up going into Strasbourg for the night. And we get very blasé about all the buildings and monuments and everything like that they've got there. It just happened to be the night that we stopped at. We jumped on the bikes again and we started to go into Luxembourg. On the way, we ended up stopping at a garage diner spot. We met up with a British man and a Dutch woman. From there, they told us about going to a war memorial in Luxembourg where Patton was buried. And that was a brilliant, just to have a look and pay our respects.
The Americans really do it well in regards to war memorials. It is so well kept. What I actually found quite fascinating is the guards that are there are actually armed.
But essentially, lovely, lovely people to talk to, friendly as anything. And we wouldn't have stopped at that war memorial if it wasn't for the people that we met. It led to probably the final part of what I thought was the trip, which was going to Bastogne. We went to the war memorial at Bastogne, again another brilliant little place that you got to visit. It's got all sorts of information on both sides of the story, Americans as well as Nazis. Back in the township of Bastogne, we seem to see a lot of Americans.
But we left Bastogne and we headed back into Paris to hand back the bikes. The bike leg has finally finished, and I think all up we realised that we'd done just over 6,000 kilometres.
And Raphael from Motorrads was brilliant in regards to the start of the trip as well as the end of the trip. So a big thank you to them about the bikes. The bikes never let us down. Got to admit, their bloody Navman, the BMW Navman, was absolute crap. I
think that night it was just a sense of it's done.
And the next day we ventured off to Disneyland.
Megsy is not only a hopeless romantic, but a Disney fanatic. In Paris being the romantic city of the world and all that sort of stuff, going to Paris Disney, I think great choice. We ended up going into the main part of the park, and we got to see we got to see the first parade of the day, which is where all the characters come out and on these floats and they do the dancing, and obviously it's in French. We went around, had a few stores to get gifts for the grandkids and my nieces and nephews. We did a few rides. The first ride was a haunted house. Then we went to Indiana Jones, where we realised it was actually a roller coaster that did a loop. And then the very last ride was my favourite. It was Pirates of the Caribbean, where it was one of those water rides that, you go through and...
It was a good Good way to finish the trip. Then there was yesterday morning.
Doing Disneyland, we did quite a lot of walking that day, so we weren't all that really keen to go out. And we took the opportunity in the morning and experienced Paris, and I'm really glad that we did it that morning because beautiful mornings. We went to Notre Dame first, and it's still getting rebuilt. Then we went to the Louvre. By far that was my favourite. The Louvre is stunning, especially the outside, and enjoying the Da Vinci Code as well, the movie. We were trying to find the bloodline. We did.
Discovered a clue.
No, we didn't. It's not an Aussie clue. No, it's not Gaza. It's not Gaza. No. Then we walked to the Eiffel Tower and obviously took some pics, and we ended up getting back and they have flown to Vietnam. So this is our 14-hour layover and we're finally heading home. I think the way that Dad mapped it, that was the perfect way to approach this trip for me, because if we had gone down west to south, the terrain I felt was quite tactical in the sense of the peaks of the Alps and the various different points that we had to go through.
We had a series of things that we'd like to do and wanted to see, but at all times we were flexible about if we wanted to make change. And by and large, we saw just about all the stuff that we wanted to see. There's no regrets about it. Yeah, I think the trip was a brilliant trip. Certainly one of those life memorable experiences where we enjoyed every part of it. You know, there's good parts and bad parts, but that's just life. I would suggest if you got a chance, do it, because I don't think you'll regret it. And I think
that's it. It's a wrap. Europe tour 2024 done and dusted.